Janet, on occasion, and today we're playing another Total War Warhammer campaign lore play, the series where we talk about the lore while playing the campaign. I'm sure you've got the gist by now. This is episode 6, I believe. So here, right, what I'm doing now is I'm trying to find that hedge wizard that I was talking about in the last episode, and it turns out Franz doesn't have it. It's actually Mezzo that's got it. So yeah, the follower, the hedge wizard, I explained before, can't have some rogue wizard in my army. That's just not, it's not proper. But with Mezzo having him, I actually like that idea, because, well, basically all wizards are kind of hedge wizards originally, and then they're sort of taken in. So the idea that there's this, you know, some young apprentice, this hedge wizard here, I like to think that it's actually Mezzo has discovered someone who can, you know, do magic, and has taken them as his apprentice. And I kind of like that. I mean, that's not completely protocol, but for role playing, I like it. So I'm gonna let Mezzo keep him. So I'm gonna be spending a lot of this this session basically just building up my lands. You know, don't want to build up that infrastructure because at the moment I'm in a sort of relatively peaceful time, and yeah, I kind of want to capitalize on that. So I want to build up my empire, and yeah, basically ride out that horrible like -40 to diplomacy with all the empire factions for confederating, which is pretty bleak. So I don't want to start running around starting wars with people because they're all going to join in if I do that, and we can't have that. So speaking of confederation, we confederated with Wissenland. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I know you did the last episode, but I was too busy talking about orcs.
Welcome,
so
friends.
you know,
what do the men of the hammer require?
So the official name for Wissenland is actually the Grand County of Wissenland, and it's ruled by Elector Countess Emanuel von Leibwitz, whose titles include the Grand Countess of Wissenland, Countess of Nuln, and Duchess of Meissen. So, you know, quite a few titles there. You know, Elector Counts do love their titles. But the thing is, she's not in the game, which I think is terrible. They replaced her with someone else with the same surname, which is rubbish. Shouldn't have done that, but, you know, I guess having a female character, you know, just one female character in the game was quite a lot for the artist just to put in, just, you know, as just one extra thing, which would be overlooked by most, so it's a bit of a pity. But, you know, I understand that, there's limitations. But hopefully we'll get her one day.
Greetings.
Also, she rules from Nuln, and Nuln is actually an independent city-state, so it's not actually part of Wissenland proper. However, it does reside within its borders, and it just so happens that the ruler of Nuln, as an independent city-state, and Wissenland happens to be the same woman. So it's kind of unique in that respect. So anyway, let's talk about the place. The southwesternmost of the Empire's provinces, Wissenland forms a triangle bounded by the Black and Grey Mountains on two sides, and the River Reich on the third. Originally confined to the lands west of the Sol River, Wissenland in the 18th century absorbed what was left of Solland after the invasion of the Orc warlord Gorbad Ironclaw. 800 years later, the people of Wissenland still often refer to the land east of the Sol as Old Solland, or Sudenland, a modern derivation. Like the Reichland, western Wissenland is heavily watered by streams and rivers flowing from the mountains that feed the Sol, which in turn joins the Upper Reich at Feildorf. These tributaries are fed by melting snow in the spring, leading to frequent flooding of the towns along their courses. Meissen itself was nearly wiped out in Great Flood of 2484. So, given that Karl Franz was coronated in 2502, that makes it about 20 years ago. Because yeah, it's hard to tell exactly when this is, you know, this is set. The farmlands of Wissenland are fertile near the Reich, but as the land rolls towards the mountains, it becomes steadily more dry and stony. Chunks of bluish-grey flint are so common that many nobles claim the land is good for little but harvesting rocks. These stones are often seen heaped at the side of fields, or incorporated into local buildings. Many Wissenland children make their first pennies following the plough in spring, plucking the offending rocks from the lands. As a result, many become skilled at catching the odd crow or hare with a well-thrown flint. Being so close to the mountains, western Wissenland has abandoned all but the barest subsistence farming, instead heavily depending on mining for its wealth. While the dwarves of Carricknorn and Carrickhearn claim large areas of the mountains for themselves, negotiations over centuries have secured rights for humans to mine too, though this does not stop illegal operations on dwarf lands. The dwarves do not take kindly to what they see as theft, and more importantly, shoddy workmanship. Classic dwarves there. Overland trade is also important to Wissenland, and many passes cross the mountains from it to Bretonnia, Tilea, and border princes. Almost all the pass roads converge at Westerberg, which has prospered from the business brought to its many inns and stables, some of them over 1,000 years old. Many travellers take their time to sample the various fine dwarfen ales that are often sold in these places. In the harsh depths of winter, almost all the passes to and from Wissenland are cut off because of snow. This makes the underground river, starting at Kreutzhofen. Sorry if I didn't quite get the pronunciation there. I can't really speak German. But I think Kreutzhofen is a good estimation. And emerging near Merigliano in Tilea, an invaluable source for year-round trade. Such is the value placed on keeping this River of Echoes open that the current Elector Countess's ancestors agreed that the Tileans should keep control of the 150-mile-long tunnel. The revenue they gain from goods passing through their lands more than compensates for relinquishing control of the tunnel. East of the Sol, the land stretches out in rolling grasslands used for sheep raising. This part of the Wissenland, the Old Solent, is famous for its high-quality wool and the fine furs its trappers bring out of the mountains. Wissenland sable is highly prized in fashionable circles in Nuln, Altdorf and beyond. There are, however, sad reminders of the past in this part of Wissenland. The ruins of many villages and towns destroyed by Ironclaws stand in silent witness to the devastation his horde wrought. Most people avoid these ruins, either out of respect for the dead, or from fear of their ghosts. So before I start talking about the people of Wissenland, I want to give a quote by a Hector Brunwald, which simply reads, "I've never met a bunch of more depressing people in my life." So I guess they're not a very jolly bunch. Wissenlanders are descendants of the Merovingians, the tribe that settled the area in pre-imperial days. Like the Umborigin to their north, the Merovingians had good relationship with the neighbouring dwarves, particularly the kingdom of Norn, and they answered in great numbers when Sigmar issued the call to arms before the Battle of Blackfire Pass. The influence of dwarf culture is said to be the reason why many Wissenlanders are short and practical in their speech. Little time is given for flowery words or fancy phrases, and even less to artists, poets, and foppish Reichlanders. The folk of Wissenland are known to be a dour lot. The fall of Solland was a dark chapter in imperial history, and Wissenlanders seem to carry the shame with them. They are a hardy people, given to few words and little emotion. Their stony implacability is known to soften when they are in their cups, and on rare occasions they might break into the Lament of Solland or other such lonesome ballad. At their best, Wissenlanders are stoic, dependable, and willing to endure hardship should it be needful. At their worst, they are depressing, dull, and obsessed with the gods. For all their earthly practicality, Wissenlanders are religiously devout, their towns and villages hosting multiple shrines, chapels, and temples to all the recognised gods, as well as local spirits. Many Wissenlanders take a few minutes each day to visit a temple or shrine, working their way through the gods over the course of a week. The people of Wissenland claim that this is simple devotion on their part, while cynics elsewhere cannot decide if they were show-offs or trying to cover all the angles, or both. While all the gods are honoured in Wissenland, Sigmar and Tal and Raya have special prominence. Sigmar's cult centres in the west, where contact with the dwarves is greatest. Both Wissenberg and Meissen have large temples that host shrines for the dwarves to worship their own deities, whilst upriver from Geschburg, in the foothills of the Grey Mountains, lies the shrine of Sigmar Protector, a popular pilgrimage spot. It was here in the 14th century that the force of the Elector Count was trapped by marauding orcs. Their destruction looked certain. According to that legend, at the height of the fighting, a great horn was heard, and from nowhere a powerful warrior wielding a hammer appeared to lead the Wissenlanders to victory. Revealing himself as Sigmar, the warrior promised he would always protect the people in their times of need. A monastery has since been built on the spot, and the monks are only too happy to give out pious icons, artifacts, and illuminated prayers in return for donations. So Sigmar turning up in the 14th century is kind of impressive, given the fact that the imperial calendar is actually based on the day that he was coronated, when he, united the empire, because he was the first emperor. So the empire started on year 0, and that was Sigmar who was ruling. So unless he's like 1500 years old, him turning up to help them fight is pretty impressive. But then I guess at that point he had been elevated to god status and probably can do what he wants. East of the Sol, the dual cult of Tal and Raya is more popular, as it was in the days of Solland. To the north, Raya is called Dyrath, a sign of Reiklander influence. There are rumours of ancient dark cults that still survive in the more remote areas of Wissenland, in towns and villages where strangers are looked at with suspicion, and the people are even more taciturn than usual. Standing stones and stone circles are frequent in these areas, some guarded by the cult of Tal and Raya, and others unclaimed by man or beast. Wissenlanders soften Reichspiel and deliver it in a monotone that some folk find exceedingly depressing. Tales of death, liturgies, and mournful plays are sometimes delivered in a Wissenland accent to heighten the feeling of the peace. This heavy, plain-speaking, and practical nature is reflected in the cuisine of Wissenland. Whilst they are known to have excellent Tillian or Bretonnian wines at the table, they are also infamous for their flat, gluttonous bread, thick mutton stews, and heavy Flinter dumplings. So yeah, definitely not a jolly bunch. And that actually extends to their toasts. Two common drinking toasts are former glories, which is, you know, a bit... What about current glories? What about, you know, recent things? Let's be happy. Also, the sun doth shine no more. That's just horrible. I wouldn't want to toast to that. That's so dreadful. You know, as in full of dread. But they do have a bit of colourful, you know, sort of language as well. To say something was easy, they say no more than a stone's throw, which I quite like. And also, in order to express a height of about 6 feet, or a length of about 6 feet, they call it a dwarf and a half, which I just think is amazing. Measuring in dwarves, which is that's just great. I love it. So, speaking of a dwarf and a half, we're now friends with the dwarves again, so that's really good news. No longer all with Carrick Ziflin. I feel like that sort of, you know, that's our mining dispute settled. Right, so, you know, everything's good again. Also, getting on really well with all the other dwarves, so that's great. I'm absolutely nailing this. As any Reiklander should, you know, any son of Sigmar. You know, we've got to be allied with the dwarves. It's an important thing. So, I'm making sure that's happening. So I'm going to take the time now to do a couple of corrections, or amendments, I suppose, to the previous video, episode 5.5, where we talked about holidays, if you remember. And someone actually commented in on that video, mentioning a couple of things, which I think are just completely spot on. So I thought I'd share them with you guys. So, HDGOFNO, I'm not going to dare try and pronounce that name. I'm not sure what it stands for anything. I don't have a clue. It's just random letters, as far as I can tell. But he commented that he thinks the Day of Folly is less based on Halloween, like I said, and more on April Fool's Day, and also the German Carnival traditions, seeing as the Empire is heavily based on Germany, and during Carnival in Germany there are traditions where fools symbolically take over the ruling of a city from the mayor, who is supposed to serve as the fools for the day, wearing masks and doing mischief. Also common to Carnival. And I think that sounds spot on. That must be their inspiration, right? Games Workshop must have used that as the basis for that holiday. It just seems too fitting for the Day of Folly. So, yeah, so bear that in mind. Also, he commented about the Night of the Restless Dead, because I mentioned, when I was talking about Remembrance Day, how many folk leave out offerings of meat for Morse crows in memory of the Night of the Restless Dead. And that happened in 1681, and I couldn't find that anywhere. I couldn't find the date. I suspected it might be something to do with the Nagash, and HDGOFNO managed to confirm that. He said that's the night that Nagash came back from the dead. This happened exactly 1666 years after he was killed by Sigmar, which is, I think, something else that got retconned, actually. But that got retconned by, you know, end time stuff. So, yeah, I think most articles have amended it to say that Nagash came back during the end times instead, which is a bit, you know, annoying, because that was a catastrophe. But, well, I suppose it's supposed to be a catastrophe, but not a literary catastrophe. You know what I'm saying. So, yeah, so that actually happened. So that was recorded. So yeah, that was in the Vampire Counts Army Book 7th edition, which I'm not privy to. So, you know, he's able to give me the source for that, so I'm very inclined to believe him. So yeah, guys, that Night of the Restless Dead. I say Night of the Living Dead. It's not a John Romero thing. Wait, is it John Romero? He did make Doom. Anyway, I'm rambling. So, yeah, there you go, guys. That's when Nagash came back. So, let's talk about Nuln for a bit. The crown that glitters with 1,000 jewels. Nuln is the Empire's second city in population, but it's first in social life and the arts. It is the home of the Imperial School of Gunnery, which supplies master gunners to the armies of all the electors. The University of Nuln is an ancient institution dating back to the earliest days of the Empire. Its scholars are regarded as among the finest in the world, and wealthy parents send their children from as far away as Arabia to study here. Arabia, I guess, meaning Araby. Then there's a typo, or at some point they just used to call it Arabia. I have no idea. Anyway, Nuln is a city-state, technically free of Wissenland, but still owing allegiance to its elect count. This poses little problem for the freewheeling people of the city, for the elector of Wissenland is also Countess of Nuln. Emanuelle von Leibwitz, still beautiful in her middle age, loves Nuln and spends most of all her time there, giving grand balls and hosting dinners that last for days. She barely conceals her contempt for the po-faced burghers and the utter boredom that tortures her when she has to attend to provincial business. To rid herself of dreary Wissenland, Countess von Leibwitz is negotiating with the Emperor to completely separate Nuln and Wissenland. She would retain Nuln and her electoral vote, whilst the province would be given to the Toppenheimer family, which would also receive an electoral vote. All this would be done in return for large loans to the Emperor's war coffers, a strategy she is coordinating with her colleague in Talepine. Nulners are different from Wissenlanders, being much more expressive and excitable than their rural cousins, and prone to talk with their hands, perhaps an influence of the large Chilean population here. They are said to be fond of garish clothes and jewellery. The Elector Countess herself is said to have over 10,000 complete outfits. The Nulner accent varies from Wissenlander by having shorter vowel sounds and often ending sentences on an up note. So now I'm going to talk a bit about the geography of Nuln. Now here I'm actually reading from the Warhammer Fantasy Wikia, which gets most of its sources from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd edition, the Forges of Nuln supplement. So, yeah, similar to the stuff I've been using for the rest of these videos. So, yeah.
For that is all I ever want.
Nuln features 3 fortified external gates to allow overland traffic to enter the city, and docks and piers along the northern and southern banks of the River Reich for watercraft. Road wardens and the local militia from the outlying towns heavily patrol the routes into the city from all 3 directions. Everyone in Nuln wants to keep its roads safe from brigands and worse. Now, on the gates, of the 3 gates, South Gate is the least used by ordinary travellers. 2 watchtowers, each defended by bolt throwers and a squad of soldiers, protect this entrance to the city, used mostly by merchants from Tilea and traders in large raw materials. This is a commercial gate. Foot traffic is encouraged to find another way into the city, as the guards inspect all cargo brought inside and the wait can often be long. West Gate leads into the Neustadt, one of Nuln's poorer neighbourhoods. Prepared to handle foot traffic, caravans and carriages, this gate is always busy as people come and go throughout the day. On a typical day, it takes a couple of hours to pass through this gate. The last gate is Griffin Gate. Nuln is known as the city of the Griffin Emperors, and originally this title applied to Nuln's most famous son, Magnus the Pious. He took his name in homage of the 2 great griffins that flank the far gate. Later emperors continued this heraldic tradition. This is by far the busiest gate, and sometimes it takes all day to pass through the griffin doors. The guards here are far more vigilant about whom they allow into the city, as the Nuln Road leads directly into the Altstadt, the district of Nuln's upper class, and home to the Aldig quarter. In addition to the exterior wall, an interior wall bisects Nuln, standing about 15 feet tall. This wall is the line between the Altstadt and the Neustadt, a physical separation of the cultured from the rabble. 4 gates allow passage to Nuln's elite neighbourhoods. They are named from north to roughly southeast as follows: Temple Gate, Magnus Gate, High Gate, and Alt Gate. High Gate is the most travelled and spectacular, as just on the other side stands a imposing temple to Verena in full view of those who would pass beneath the arch. Now, I'm not going to go all lot about all the different bridges over the river connecting the city to different islands and things. Because it's just so many place names that will mean nothing to anyone. However, they do have a main bridge, which is considered a wonder of the old world, because it has a centre section that can be raised for defence or to allow ships to pass. So pretty technologically impressive that. So I think that's worth mentioning. And also we did mention Altstadt and Neustadt being the rich and poor areas. That's quite easy to remember really, because just like Altdorf, that Alt would correspond to old. So Altstadt is basically Old Town, and Neustadt is New Town. So Old Town is obviously, you know, has been built up and is very impressive, and that's where all the rich people live. And Neustadt is, you know, the rest of the city really. So earlier I did actually mention the Imperial Gunnery School in Nuln, which is sort of the most famous of the, you know, sort of engineering institutions, I suppose. But there is also a College of Engineering, much like the one in Altdorf. So I want to read about that, because it's, you know, kind of quirky, the idea of this lesser known, you know, really impressive place. So few people even realise Nuln has a College of Engineering. The Imperial Gunnery School is much more famous, training the cannon crews that serve in the Empire, and overshadowed by the college in Altdorf. The truth of the matter is that Nuln almost didn't. The Countess had long supported the idea of building a rival college here, and despite her very best efforts and bottomless well of Karls, which is their currency, she just couldn't compete with the engineers in the new capital. The Countess decided that what was in order is to fund a construction of a brand new College of Engineering, one with facilities that would dwarf the one in Altdorf. And dwarf it did. The Countess paid handsomely to attract dwarf engineers and craftsmen from as far away as the most distant holdfasts. Staffing the place with the best people her money could buy, Altdorf finally took notice. The reign of Nuln's illustrious college was short-lived, sadly, for treachery, probably Bretonnian, though some speculate it was the mutants from the night market, caused the grand building to burn down, destroying the new steam tanks and organ guns the college had constructed. So I've already mentioned in a previous video, there aren't many steam tanks. The idea of building new ones is unbelievable. So this place must have been incredibly impressive.
Friends of the Empire,
It said part of the building fell into the sewers too, though the dwarves still in the employ of the college viciously deny this, claiming if it were true, then it would have been down to a tunnel expansion excavated by manling hands. In any event, the Countess half-heartedly funded the reconstruction of the college, and soon her latest party distracted her from her cunning plan. Since the rebuilding of this grand structure was never fully completed, it has languished in obscurity ever since. Nuln's College of Engineering is built close to being completed. Surrounded by a tall-spiked wall, the college is formidable, replete with barracks, turrets, bolt throwers, and even a cannon. The grounds are maintained, but not manicured as they are over at the Imperial Gunnery School. The central structure is the college itself, a large building designed to double as a castle. A massive archway allows access to the interior, protected by a dozen elite guards. Inside, the building looks a bit worn. Enrollment offices are near the front, and quarters for the students run along the front of the building, on the ground and first floors. The faculty lives in nice rooms on the second floor. An open gallery with catwalks and balconies that rises from the ground floor to the roof is where all the work and the classes take place. Here, masters can instruct their apprentices to the finer arts of engineering, devising new and innovative war machines. Currently, the college is committed to developing a new steam tank that requires less fuel to operate, allowing it to be of more use in more sustained conflicts on the battlefield. Smaller halls adjoining the large hall serve as smaller classrooms to instruct the novices and to construct new firearms. As mentioned though, enrollment is down and the college struggles to stay functional in the face of a disinterested countess. So that's a pity. But, you know, there's still the Imperial Gunnery School. So far more successful than the ill-conceived College of Engineering, the Imperial Gunnery School is not only Nuln's most famous attraction, but is also the most breathtaking example of Nuln's innovative architectural skills. A huge sprawling building with towers kissing the clouds, leering gargoyles, and gigantic flying buttresses. The Imperial Gunnery School draws visitors who just wish to see it, to say nothing of the nobles who send their sons to study here. Created for the purpose of training artillery crews and pistoliers, the finest soldiers received their training in these celebrated halls. The school itself dominates the centre of the Universitat, dwarfing the College of Engineering and the lesser institutions crowded in its shadows. A large part of the school's grounds are given over to shooting ranges, and throughout the days the crack of gunfire echoes throughout the city. Cannons are test-fired from Ava Island or beyond the city walls. In addition to the ranges, the school also has several large lecture halls, dormitories, and smaller classrooms. The University of Nuln is an ancient institution, one of the first schools founded in the Empire and certainly dating back to the earliest days of the Empire. Though its prominence has waned somewhat, especially in the face of the progressive centres of learning in Altdorf, the university is respected and regarded as one of the finest in the world. Part of Nuln's cosmopolitan nature stems from the diverse student body that comes to study here, for wealthy parents send their children from as far away as Araby to study here. The school specialises in mathematics, philosophy, theology, literature and some sciences, disdaining the fringe sciences of newer programmes. A student studying here receives a fine, albeit classical, education with an intention of becoming a good imperial citizen. The student body is almost exclusively noble, with only a very few sons of the merchant class in attendance. Tuition is high indeed. The campus of the school rivals that of the gunnery school. Situated along Commercial Way, it consists of 4 large buildings. 3 hold lecture halls, while the last is for students, surrounding a great statue of the school's founder, Sebastian Viet, a scholar and pious follower of Sigmar. Each building is named for a cardinal point: North Hall, East Hall, South Hall and West Hall, the dorms. The school's architecture is much like the Imperial Gunnery School, being large and intimidating. Visitors can tour the south wall to look out onto the Reichsplatz, though only at certain times, which change with each semester, decorated with stone busts that celebrate the great scholars who studied or taught here, as well as religious paintings recounting the deeds of Sigmar, Magnus the Pious, and others of import to the Empire's history. The interiors are not much more appealing than the exterior. Some claim that at night ghosts prowl the halls, ghosts of those who committed suicide because of the pressure imposed by the professors. Perhaps the greatest and most renowned of the university's scholars is Aisriyths, who recently compiled a great treatise on the history of the Old World for the Emperor Karl Franz himself. In it, he offers a broad discussion of the foundations of the Empire, plus travelogues for the major nations including Bretonnia, Kislev, Tilia, and Estalia, whilst also venturing to describe the distant lands of Araby, the Southlands, Cathay, and more. Largely considered the definitive source for historical and geographical information, this volume has been distributed throughout the provinces of the Empire. And although this all sounds incredibly impressive, all of the sort of gunnery schools and things, they all actually lie in Neustadt, which is kind of the more, run-down area, really. But then I guess you wouldn't really want to be, having a dinner party with cannon testing outside your window. So I guess that makes sense. But also in Neustadt, there is a shantytown. So the shantytown is known as, sort of the shame of Nuln, really. A collection of shabby houses, filthy streets, and profane odours. The shantytown is the haven of thief and murderer. Men and women of low morals, if they had them, they'd own property, and the diseased and malformed. Most decent Nulners avoid this part of town, seeing the people there as nothing more than rabble. And though it was the shantytowners who came to the city's defence when the Skaven boiled up from beneath the city, Nulners have a short memory when it suits them. Most homes here are tenement buildings and bars with little in between. There's no industry to speak of. Those who work do so across the river of the Fuhlstadt. Sewers do not run under this part of town, but the sewer lines are farther apart, being man-made additions constructed well after the dwarves picked up and moved on. And so rubbish takes longer to find its way to the Reich. The entrances to sewers are not well protected either, and many a vagabond hunkers down in the foul-smelling entrances for shelter against the harsh winter winds. Worse, the things living under the city come out in this neighbourhood to work their evil. So, it's all good. So there's a hell of a lot of information here, actually. I'll actually link this page in the description if you want to read more about Nuln and various places. But I do want to talk about their military, seeing as how we're in a battle now. I know this is Nuln military, but, it gives you a nice idea of the place and how they keep order. So even though Nuln boasts one of the best militaries in the Empire, its streets are little safer than elsewhere. The soldiers in the service of Nuln muster for war, not for walking the city streets to maintain law and order. Instead, the city depends on the volunteers who serve in the watch, and the desperate who serve as sewer jacks. The best soldiers are reserved protecting the palace and the imperial gunnery schools. Most nobles also hire bodyguards for personal protection, never relying on the unpredictable skills and talents of the city watch. So there's the Nuln Secret Police, which is immediately piques my interest. I think that's awesome. So a few years ago, a particularly zealous man named Felix von Hallstatt ingratiated himself with the Countess. Having the support of the Knights of the White Wolf, Felix began a crusade to rid the city of mutants and cultists, to hunt down everyone and make them confess their sins in the bowels of the Iron Tower. Von Hallstatt established a secret police force consisting mostly of informants and disreputable types to watch for suspicious behaviour. He kept extensive files on all prominent citizens, collecting evidence, real or fabricated, to use against them. Felix's reign of fear was brief. He was murdered and his house set on fire. It's believed Skaven killed von Hallstatt, though there has been speculation that a certain pair of vagabonds might have had something to do with it. In any event, Hieronymus Ostwald, then the personal secretary to the Countess, stepped in and took over the secret police. His tenure has been somewhat more relaxed in regard to the threat, but he is obsessed with Skaven and pressures the sewer jacks to be vigilant in their patrols in Nuln sewers. Whether the secret police still exist or not, or if there are actual operatives, no one is certain. Oswald still manages the department, but no one knows how many officers he employs, if he does at all. So, very, very James Bond. So, the Watch. The keepers of the peace are the city's watchmen. These men and a few women walk the streets enforcing the Countess's laws with varying level of vigilance, depending on the neighbourhood they walk. When patrolling the Aldig quarter, they are keenly aware of any infraction, even minor ones. Should a person look suspicious, the Watch arrest them first and ask questions later. The farther one travels from the palace, the far more infrequent the patrols, until one reaches Shantytown in the Neustadt, where few patrols dare to even enter. So, the watch stations. In each of Nuln's districts stands a watch station. These large two-storey houses are fortified with bars over their windows, and are constructed of heavy stone. The stations serve as barracks for the watchmen on duty, jails for criminals, and as minor courts for lesser crimes. Patrols receive all orders from these sites and regularly report back to the station for new orders. Then, of course, there's the sewer jacks, who I mentioned just a second ago, which really wondering what they are. So, sewer jacks, a specialised group of watchmen. The sewer jacks patrol Nuln's sewers. As dwarfs first constructed Nuln's sewage system, the tunnels and channels are larger and safer, structurally, than those of other cities, such as Middenheim. Because they are so serviceable, they attract all sorts of nasty things. Goblins, mutants, and Skaven all claim parts of the sewers, spreading mischief and mayhem in the city. Families saddled with a mutant child will sometimes give the tainted baby to the Night Market, a renowned city of mutants purported to be far below the city. Since the Skaven infestation of several years back, Nuln redoubled its efforts in keeping the Undercity safe and cleansed of undesirables. Still, they have a hard time recruiting quality men, and so they are somewhat lax when it comes to their recruits. Now, it keeps mentioning the Skaven and how they turned up recently. I'm about 95% sure that that's actually all talking about the Storm of Chaos. So, in sort of Total War and stuff, there's obviously the whole myth that Skaven don't exist, but most of the 2nd edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is based after the Storm of Chaos event, where you can't really deny that Skaven existed because your cities were full of them. So, yeah, so slightly different. Slightly different from what sort of what's depicted in Total War Warhammer, but you know, still interesting. I think they do obviously still have goblins and mutants and stuff hanging out in the sewers, and so the sewer jacks would still be doing that. So their jobs haven't changed there. So I think that's a nice summary of Wissenland and Nuln. Sorry I didn't talk about the campaign too much here, what I was doing, but then it's mainly diplomacy going on. So yeah, in the next one, hopefully things will be a bit more exciting. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, comment, like, and subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll see you in the next video, okay guys? Have a good one.